It's the chapter we've been waiting for, chapter 17. Oh, ABARAT by Clive Barker. Good morning. Whoop whoop. Holy cannoli, let me rearrange my desk. Ooh, yeah. I hope everyone's doing well out there in YouTube land. It's been a minute. 5 days since I read out of here. Holy shit. Yep. Oh, the seam's even busted. Look at this. The seam at chapter 17 has been busted. Aw, that's beautiful. Listen, I haven't seen that anywhere else in this book so far. The seam is busted at chapter 17. All right, cool. Oh, and there's some art. Hold up. We're going to do this now because I'm not going to do it after, but look at that. Cool. Almanac. Given how close together the cottages were, Candy had fully expected to find a small crowd outside Izarith's store, drawn there by the noise of their fight with the insect. But there was far more interest in what was going on down at the dock. Everybody was headed that way, so Candy made her way up the street against the flow of the crowd. She was much more aware of the insect population now, which of the numberless creatures buzzing around was a spy, like the one in Izarith's house. Every now and then something whined past her ear and she swatted it away. None, she was pleased to see, came back. The street had broad, shallow steps, which made climbing a little easier. Even so, the labor of walking soon began to take its toll on her. The short sleep she had in front of the fire at Izarith's cottage had not been sufficient to fully restore her. What she still needed, she knew, was some food. There were a number of stalls set out to the left and to the right of her on the steps, and they seemed to be selling a variety of edible goods. Dried fish were hanging up on one stall, not her favorite choice. At another, somebody was deep frying something that looked remarkably like a donut, especially when it had been dusted with sugar. She dug in her pockets of the little dress Izarith had given her and pulled out the $6 she had kept. Perhaps it wasn't wise to use them, she thought. They marked her out as an alien here. That left two options. She could either beg for food or steal it. Since she was in urgent need of sustenance, in her present situation, morality didn't seem to enter the picture. She looked up the street a little way. One stall seemed to have been deserted by its owner, who'd probably gone down to the dock with the rest of the crowd. As she started to make her way toward the empty stall, there was a surge of noise behind her, and a portion of the crowd, along with a number of police officers, came back, all gathered around 3 or 4 people who had clearly been pulled out of the water. "Make way! Make way!" one of the officers yelled. "We've got injured people here." That was, of course, precisely the wrong thing to say. As soon as the words escaped his lips, more spectators appeared to swell the crowd, eager to see how horrible the injuries were. Many of them clogged the streets ahead of the advancing throng. The officer began to yell again, but people wanted to see, and no amount of shouting from the police officer was going to stop them from getting a glimpse. It was a curiously familiar scene. Watching it, Candy flashed on something that had happened 4 or 5 years ago, back home, or in the hereafter, as she now thought of home. The family had been on a midsummer trip to see Grandma Hattie, Melissa's mother's mother, in Pelican Rapids. They had been on Highway 94, and the trip had been going smoothly until suddenly the traffic had ground almost to a complete halt. For the next hour and a half, they had crawled along. The air conditioning in the car was not working properly, so the heat was ferocious. It made everybody bad-tempered. It had quickly become clear that the problem up ahead was a collision, and Candy's father had started to rage about the fact that the real reason traffic had come to a halt was because people were slowing down to see the wreckage. "Damn looky-loos. Everybody has to slow down and take a look. It's sick. Why can't people mind their own damn business?" Of course, half hour of sweat and curses later, when the Quackenbush's car finally came up to the accident site, Candy's father had slowed down just like everybody else. In fact, he had almost brought the line to a complete halt so that he could watch a body being brought out from under one of the 7 vehicles, trucks, cars, and 8-wheeler rigs that were involved in the collision. Candy should have known better, but her tongue had been quicker than her self-protective instincts. "I thought you told us it was sick, Dad," she had said. Without missing a beat, Bill Quackenbush had leaned back between the seats and slapped her hard. "Don't you give me cheek." "I just said." He slapped her again harder. "Enough, Bill," Candy's mother had said. "I'll be the judge of that," came the reply, and just to show that he didn't care about his wife's opinion, he slapped Candy a 3rd time, bringing tears to her eyes. As she wiped them away, she caught the sight of her mother in the mirror throwing an accusatory glance up at her husband. Bill Quackenbush had not seen the look. He was still staring at the bloody scene across the highway. But Candy had read the look clearly, and in the confusion of feelings she had for her father, it had given her a kind of sad satisfaction to see the cold loathing in her mother's eyes. But it wasn't enough. Why didn't she ever stick up for Candy, or herself? Why was she so weak? All of this came back to Candy while she was watching the crowd come up the street, as clear as if it had happened yesterday. The heat of the car, the smell of her brother's sweat and farts, her own discomfort and boredom, then the horrible sight of the tangled wreckage, and the moment of regret when she had spoken, but it was too late to take the words back, followed by the slap and the tears and her mother's glacial stare. That was the world she left behind: boredom, violence, and tears. Whatever lay ahead of her there, she thought, it had to be better than that. It had to be. She looked away from the crowd back up the street to see that more than one stall had been deserted by their owners, who had all hurried down to see what could be seen. She went up 2 or 3 steps to a stall with a variety of pastries laid out on it. The display looked very... 2 of them. The display looked very similar to something she might have found in the supermarket in Chickentown. In Chickentown, only tastiers. Turnovers, croissants, sticks of bread rolled in dried fruit, and a variety of small cakes. She selected 3 very quickly, 2 turnovers and 1 huge scone, and then, greedily, went back for a croissant. Having got herself more than a meal's worth, she glanced up and down the street just to check that the vendor wasn't making his or her return. It seemed she was free and clear. She hurried away, clamping 1 turnover between her teeth and pocketing the other 3 pastries. Then she went up the street and found a low stone wall where she could sit and eat. The pastry was doughy, perhaps undercooked, but the filling was extremely sweet, with an odd, almost peppery edge, which she didn't like on the first bite, but quickly changed her mind about. While she ate, her eyes went to a large advertisement on the opposite side of the street. It showed a deliriously happy boy, drawn in a cartoony style, with baggy striped pants and a big curl of blue hair, like a wave about to break, in the center of his head. He was animated by carefully laid lines of neon light and was walking on the spot, waving as he walked. Beside him on the wall, the sign that read, "The Comexo Kid says, for everything that ails you from toe rot to taxes, try the panacea." Candy laughed. Her mood, which had been darkened by her memories of the events on Highway 94, lightening again. And then, from the corner of her eyes, a figure appeared. A man dressed in a blue coat, wearing a spotted all-in-one suit underneath, stepped into view. "I saw you," he said. "You saw me do what?" "Take the pastries." "Oh, dear." "It's okay," the man said, sitting down on the wall beside her, "as long as you share." Aw, gross. He was smiling as he spoke, so it seemed that the threat, such as it was, carried no weight. Candy pulled the scone out of her pocket and broke it in half. "Here," she said, handing one half over to her new companion. "Most generous," he replied, rather formally. "And you are—" "Candy Quackenbush. And you are—" "Samuel Hastrim Klept, the 5th, here." He fished a little pamphlet printed on coarse brown paper out of his pocket. "What is this?" "Klept's Almanac. First published by my great-great-grandfather, Samuel Hastrim Klepp the First. This is the new edition. Candy took the pamphlet and flicked through the pages. It was rather chaotically designed, its illustrations in black and white, but it was packed to the margins with information. There were maps, gaming rules, a page or two of astrology, and a few pages of pictures of what the author described as new animals, which was an interesting notion. Further pages listed celestial events, the times of meteor showers and eclipses, even a collection of recipes, and interspersed between these relatively commonplace pieces were articles with a rather more aberration twist. The Cat's Hair Cathedral, Myth or Reality, The Dung Jewel of Ifrit, A Gatherer's Tale, and The Golden Warrior, Dead or Alive. So you publish this, Candy said? Yes, and I sell it here in the Great Head and the Tangsamore and Candlemas and Kikador. But there's not much of a market for it any longer. People can get all of the information they need from him. He jerked his finger rather rudely at the Comexo kid. He doesn't exist, does he? I mean the kid. No, not yet, but take it from me, it's only a matter of time. Are you joking? No, not at all, Samuel said. These people over at Comexo City, Rojo Pixler and his gang have plans for us, and I don't think any of us are going to like what they have up their sleeve. Candy looked at him blankly. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Not exactly. Where are you from? Samuel said. Oh, here and there. Samuel put his hand on her arm. Tell me, I can keep a secret. I guess there's no reason why you shouldn't know, Candy said. I came over from the other world. You call it the hereafter. A broad grin came over Samuel Klepp's face. You did, he said. Well, isn't that something? I thought when I first laid eyes on you, stealing those cakes, there's something about that girl. He shook his head, his expression one of delight. You see, a lot of people here think the hereafter is a myth, but I've always believed in it. So did my father and my father's father, all the way back to Samuel Hastrim Klepp the First. Tell me more, please. I want to know everything about the hereafter. Really? Said Candy. I don't think it's very interesting. Well, it might not be to you, because you were born there, but my readers here need to hear about your world. They need to know the truth. But if people think it's all just a myth, how will you make anyone believe it? Put it this way. I think it's better to try to get them to believe in new things than to just be content to have Comexo run their lives, curing everything from toe rot to taxes. I ask you, how ridiculous can you get? There was a new commotion from further down the street as more drowned or nearly drowned people were brought in from the docks. Klepp made a face. I've never been able to hear you talking over that din and hullabaloo. Why don't you come back to the press with me? The press? The place where I print the almanac. I can show you a little of my world while you tell me about yours. How does that sound? Sure, said Candy. She was happy to get off the street, to be away from all the noise and confusion, so that she could gather up her thoughts. Then let's depart before the pastry cook comes back and counts her scones, Samuel said mischievously, and led Candy away up the long stairs to the heart of the city. Aw, chapter 17 was so short. Oh, whoop whoop. Chapter 18 will be called The Tale of Hark's Harbor. Have the best day.